Welcome to Pop Monster, a podcast to feed all your pop culture cravings. My name is Sarah, a self-confessed superfan. This show will cover everything from reality TV chaos, nostalgic deep dives, and the latest in music, TV, movies, and books. So let's get into it. Now, this week, we've made it to week 4. We're at the halfway point already. And if you're in the UK, we are in a heat wave, which turns me into a real miserable bitch. I was just not built for this, so I'm just going to try and get through this record today because I'm trying to do it without any fan on because that'll mess up the audio, so I'm just pushing through right now. Also, as someone who pops a daily Prozac Tic Tac, my body's sense of temperature regulation is non-existent. My poor partner is turned into a fishmonger in this weather and very sweetly continuously tosses ice packs on me while I'm basically a beached whale. At least I have Love Island, although I was really hoping to see Toy Story 5 this week. But I just couldn't bear the short drive to the cinema in our car that doesn't really have functioning air conditioning. And I have some notes on that franchise. I need them to explore more on this Buzz, Jessie, Woody, Bo Peep love square. I feel we missed some drama between movies, but those toys are a raggedy mess. Anyway, let's get into week 4 because I have a lot to cover and a lot to say. We begin with Sunday's episode that is continuing with the potential rekindling between Mika and Samraj, who is still boldly lying to Priya's face and making her look like a mug. And I just know that they're going to get away with it because everyone in that villa has a huge hate boner for Priya for some reason. Now, Priya's gut is telling her that something is off, but I think she is miscalibrating how respectful and considerate Samraj and Mika are. So she thinks they'd be honest with her, but those two are completely self-serving, and I think they're kind of getting off on the secrecy of sneaking around. Although Samraj has told absolutely everyone else, right down to the catering team, how he's avoiding Priya and getting the ick from her. This guy is faker than Aiden's turkey teeth, and I'm disappointed by how shallow I am, because when Samraj was spinning a completely false narrative to Priya about what happened on that terrace with Mika, all I could focus on was how he looked breathtaking in a tank top with his hair gel like that. He gives a 90s, early 2000s boy band vibe, which, for a woman of my age, is simply irresistible. And I need to take a minute to discuss the energy levels of the bombshells this season. I need to know what's going on because it just seems like they've all been dosed with tranquilizers. Even Chidi cannot be bothered to graft. He has to have our producers, Lola and Fitzy, prod him to actually do something. Now, I'm sure he's feeling unmotivated after the humiliation ritual that was the sleepover, but we may as well call things a wrap now if nobody can be bothered to have chats with each other. Besides Priya, I have not been impressed by the effort levels that are being brought by the bombshells in the series so far. And, I mean, that's got her nowhere because I feel like everyone can't stand her because she's trying too hard. And someone has to be giving us something. If nobody can be bothered, then why should the audience bother watching the show? So I need them to pick it up. Speaking of low effort, we have Simba trying to recover his situation with Angelista. And it's clear from his face that he would rather be anywhere else. I think he was ready to completely jump ship to Mika, so wasn't prepared or expecting to have to do this, and now is miserably trying to graft to Angie just to secure her survival. And I just pray that she is using him in return because I wasn't buying a single thing he said about him feeling nothing during the kiss with Mika and him being scared because he's starting to like her. This guy is full of shit, and the only person in that villa that I consider to be a self-saboteur is Jasmine, if I'm being honest. And Angie just looks so exhausted, but wants to push through the situation and stop moping. Ugh. Like, we all know he's just going to do this again, and he knows he'll get away with it because Angie is just being such a doormat. New guys have just come in. She should be considering some different options, although those lazy bastards should be pulling her, to be fair. But poor Angelisa's time here has just been pure misery. When Chidi can eventually be bothered to pull her, he's just phoning it in and says, "I rock with you" a million times. But at least he looks adorable wearing his little glasses, but Angie can't even fake it with him either. And instead of flirting, decides to tell him that she's glad he didn't pick her because then Simba would have gone home. Jesus. I'm wasting my breath even getting annoyed on her behalf because she is clearly very happy to be strung along and settle for the bare minimum. This is painful to watch. Over to Jasmine and Kevin, and they're saying all this stuff about how much they like each other and how their time apart during the sleepover has helped them put things in perspective. Now, I consider them very cute, but this is clearly just a fun summer fling, and, that's not a terrible outcome from the show. If they were going to spend the rest of their lives confined in this Love Island bubble, I feel like those two are made for each other. But, I don't know, I just can't imagine them even making it through the flight home. Alright, let's jump to the next morning, and I fear that if I wasn't a decade too old, didn't look like a bridge troll, and didn't have the gene that makes me feel shame, I would be in this villa and acting like Lorenzo. Honestly, the most I've related to anyone here was seeing him look in awe at all of the skincare options available to him. I would be doing a full supermarket sweep and steal all of that Korean skincare, because in that scene with the boys, it looks like they're unboxing about 20 different skincare products. See, little things like that make having only 2 toilets and having to live with Aiden worth it. Speaking of, this man is a joke. He's claiming to the boys that he hasn't got a kiss from Tina and she's just been asking him for back scratches. I don't get how that's a relationship-specific thing. Just stroke her like a Shetland pony, you lazy prick. Ugh, honestly, he was really aggravating me when he was complaining about Tina. I don't want to hear this because him leading her on is what resulted in my Queen Namibia being sent home. I can't believe he's already looking for an out with Tina, but I can't be convinced that she feels anything other than disdain for this man. And I don't blame her. Although it did kill me watching this man be all high and mighty, because throughout his time here, he's had a lot of options. But during that scene, all the girls are discussing how shit of a kisser he is. And if I was him, I don't think I could recover from watching that scene when I got home. So Jasmine gets a text, and the news is out. BB Rexa will be performing in the villa, and I'm sorry to this woman, but I don't know her. At gunpoint, I don't think I could summon the name of even one of her songs. I guess everyone there seems miserable, so they need this, but nothing can ever top when they got Craig David in season 5. I mean, last year on Love Island USA, they got Megan Thee Stallion, although she didn't actually perform, she just hosted a twerking competition, but it was glorious. Before they can enjoy their party, it's time for another dumping. Like Simba, my prayers have been answered. In their couples, they have to decide which pair they think is the least compatible. Something I loved was that they had to share their working out with the class. They couldn't just do that anonymous text thing they do with a vote. Each couple had to nominate them straight to their faces, and this is what we need more of. But the voting results weren't exactly a blindside. Hallie and Tommy get nominated by Jasmine and Kevin, Mika and Chidi, Lola and Fitzy, and Samraj and Priya. Now, Mika and Chidi, who are obviously the least compatible couple, get picked by Hallie and Tommy, Ellie and Finley, Angie and Simba, and Aiden and Tina. And I do respect Yaz and Lorenzo for giving a rogue vote to Aiden and Tina. I just know that his feud with Lorenzo will never die. So, anyway, as there's a tie, all 4 have to stand up and decide which 2 of them should leave the villa. On cue, Mika starts sobbing instantly, and everyone starts to plead their cases for why they should stay. Hallie doesn't want to go down as a result of Tommy's behaviour, and Chidi doesn't feel like he's had enough time. Now, as someone who can't fake cry, I know I'd be fucked in this situation. Mika pretends to be a martyr and acts like maybe she should just go, but she's full of shit, and this riles up everyone else to take up her cause so she'll survive, especially Priya, who is calling her one of the most genuine people here. Well, I guess she doesn't know all the shit that Mika is doing behind her back. I love that Tommy and Chidi are debating between themselves who deserves it more, while Mika and Hallie have teamed up, saying that they are more genuine than the boys and should be kept over them. Inevitably, it becomes a group decision because, of course, none of these fame-hungry people are going to bow out and sacrifice their position on the show. And this played out exactly as it always does, with the OGs sticking together. They say that it's a no-brainer for Mika to stay, and that as they're keeping one OG, then one bombshell should get to stay as well, so that they're given a fair chance. But Aiden wants to position himself as the number 1 boy in the villa, so he organises a democratic voting system to choose who should stay between the 3 others. Honestly, this guy should just shut up and be lucky he's not one of the people in the bottom. So Chidi gets 4 votes to stay from Angie, Simba, Finley, and Tina. Tommy gets 6 votes to stay from Lorenzo, Kevin, Samraj, Fitzy, Lola, and Aiden. And Hallie gets 4 votes to stay from Yasmin, Jasmine, Priya, and Ellie. This means that, of course, Mika and Tommy are staying, and yeah, this is such bullshit. I will say that from a drama standpoint, those 2 will probably cause more chaos. But if it was up to me, I really think all 4 of them should have been sent home, and I don't think anything of value would have been lost. I really appreciated Simba pointing out that this is bollocks and completely unfair. Anyone who sat there and voted for Tommy to stay is full of shit. I would have more respect for them if they said they're just keeping their mates that they've known longer, because their decision to keep those specific people doesn't align with their original voting logic. We even have Samraj taking Tommy on as another man who he's hoping to rehabilitate. I can't even listen to his lecture on how Tommy needs to clean up his act. I found this performative, and if he'd really had an issue with his behaviour, then he shouldn't have voted him to stay. Secretly, I was hoping that after this, Mika would dump him and start hooking up with Tommy, because those two are a mess. Regardless, Aiden is standing strong that all sales are final and there will be no takebacks, and I pray that he won't become yet another person to enter the reality star to politician pipeline. Now, do I think Chidi and Hallie are painfully dull? Yes, but we have seen very little of them, and they're right that this is absolutely Friend Island. Well, actually, I'm not sure if it is for Mika, because she's just being shady and telling the other girls about her and Samraj's reconciliation. But it's not the time to tell Priya, as she'll freak out and push him away. And yeah, this is why I couldn't keep a straight face when everyone was calling her genuine. Alright, let's move on to Monday's episode, when I can finally discover what a BB Rexa is. For this special performance, the villagers receive an eBay special delivery of party-ready outfits, and honestly, everything was beyond tacky, and I loved it all. I have no taste, and I have to wonder how much impact this sponsorship has, because I only ever hear of people buying clothes secondhand from Vinted these days. Honestly, the only thing I'm buying off eBay is nostalgic magazines from the early 2000s, so I can relive my teenage years. Anyway, over to the performance, and I was shocked to find out that she's American, and I didn't recognize a single song she played, so maybe I've been living under a rock. BB gives some shoutouts to Jasmine and talks to Angelista about Simba being in the doghouse, and footage not found. I'm calling bullshit on this. Angie has been giving this boy some really gentle parenting. He is getting all the cuddles, and she is putting up zero boundaries, and yet this man still manages to cross them all. But she's made her bed and is welcoming him back with open arms. And like Chidi, he tells her that he rocks with her. I have to ask, is this something that people are saying? I've just never heard this verbiage before, but I'm very out of the loop. Over to Jasmine and Kaven, and he tells Aiden and Samraj that he's thinking of locking things down and making it exclusive. Whatever, I think it's time to make things exclusive when it's the final week. Aiden tells him that he's jealous of what he has, and yeah, there was no surprises there. Kaven is the Hillary to his Haley Duff. And it can't be easy knowing your younger brother is the new and improved version of you. Now, Kaven is 21, and you can really see that by how easily he's influenced by them and decides to hold back on taking that next step. Seriously, Kaven, the only person in this villa who's more useless to turn to for advice than those two is Tommy. I just don't believe that they're looking out for his best interests. They want you to be flopping in the villa just like they are. And I don't think this bodes well for how Kaven will behave in Casa. Just a pinch of peer pressure, and I can guarantee that he'll be licking titties within the hour. Okay, let's get into the love triangle between Priya, Samraj, and Mika. Now, I cannot be convinced that Mika has had some serious realization that things were better with Samraj. She still doesn't want that man. It's obvious, and this guy is stringing Priya along because he would drop her in a second if Mika showed a little bit more commitment. But he can sense her hesitancy and doesn't want to be rejected and made a fool of by her again. At least fake-ass Mika pulls Priya to let her know that she's still interested in rekindling things with Samraj, which Priya takes well, but it does make her want to retreat and pull back in her relationship with him. Although that doesn't stop them from getting some under-the-cover action in bed that night. Oh, Priya, she is truly living my worst nightmare and having it broadcasted to millions. She's saying all these nice things about Samraj, doing bits in bed, and is completely oblivious to him telling everyone else that he's got the ick. Yeah, he's going way too far, and I can't even handle the disrespect. I'm really worried about how she'll react when she gets shown clips of everyone shit-talking her. Although she killed me when he's late with her morning coffee, and she says that her tits look great, so he can piss off if he doesn't want to make coffee for these bad boys. Iconic, and I hope that nobody can impact her stellar self-esteem. At least she had fun discussing groping his dick with Jasmine while observing Mika and Samraj have the driest conversation imaginable. I think this is why they enjoy the sneaking around, because without that, they're painfully dull. So I have a confession. My favourite couple to watch is Tina and Aiden. They are both reminding me of some of the messiest old school Islanders we've seen. It's bringing me right back to the horror show that was series 2. Now, don't get me wrong, I can't stand Aiden, but it's refreshing to watch someone who will do and say the wildest shit and act unapologetically like an absolute pig with zero concern for the optics. Anyway, these two are a shit show. He's pissed off at Yaz and Lorenzo for voting them as the least compatible, and she's annoyed that he's not as affectionate towards her as he was with Ellie or Yaz. And this sleaze can't offer any cuddling or back scratches until he gets his kisses. He is grim, and she just laughs in his face. Yeah, clearly neither of these two is interested in the other, but I'd happily watch them be coupled until the final. It's been lovely watching her yell at him for all his bullshit. Although, please don't ever make me watch them kiss again. It was disgusting. ITV needs to sort themselves out. Teens are watching this show. So this should have been pixelated to protect their young eyes from the horrors of this world. And while we're at it, can we also shield their ears from having to listen to that god-awful, slowed-down cover of Hot to Go that they played? Something I don't get is why Caven pushed Tina towards Aiden when he even says now that he knows she's not his type. What the fuck? We lost Namibia for nothing. Now, after that dumping, Tommy has had to hire a crisis management firm consisting of Fitzy and Aiden to handle the fallout. He decides to pull all the ladies for a conversation, and this was so fucking weird. I like that all of the women have revolted against him, so he has to try and get back in their good graces. That little bitch can't even take accountability for his own actions without saying that he hasn't been as bad as Simba. Yeah, you're not sorry, and everyone seems appropriately icked out by him. Priya would rather self-afflict than face the prospect of being in a couple with him, and I can't blame her. Anyway, I've perhaps gone fully delusional, and I'm ready for another go on the Jasmine and Lorenzo roller coaster. So Lorenzo tells Yaz that he's having a good time with her, but preferred it before when there was chaos going on. Wow, this guy has such pretty privilege, because he just says whatever he wants without a care in the world or consideration for anyone else's feelings. She's even willing to give him the chaos he craves, but it seems like this is what she feared when getting into a couple with him. And now we have Aiden hoping for a reconciliation with Yaz. And I've also seen some cute chemistry between Priya and Caven. I see the vision, but maybe I'm just writing fanfiction. So we close this episode with a game of Never Have I Ever, and this is reminding me of when people used to play it at school. I just get the sense that so many of them were lying in order to make themselves look more in demand and to get some street cred. I just find it hard to believe that multiple Islanders had more than 10 people on their roster. Even if you're just messaging them on a dating app, who has the time? I get that Fitzy has to try to make himself seem less boring, but there is no way that you could accidentally make a group chat with all of your roster. Now, did anyone else get scared when Caven said he was in a 2-guy, 1-girl threesome? Because I would not be shocked if Aiden was the other boy involved. Especially when Aiden was all giggly and saying that he knows who was part of it. Sometimes I feel like I need to shower in a vat of chlorine after watching the show. Then they're asked to drink if they've been two-faced in the filler. Now, Samraj drinks, and this was the perfect opportunity to tell Priya the truth. Although, to be fair, that is something that he really needs to tell her in private. But in actuality, he's talking about bitching with Aiden about Lorenzo playing a game, but he now realizes that he was wrong because they bonded over skincare. This show is so dumb at times. And I have to say that I'm annoyed that they dedicated only 5 minutes of this episode to the game, because everything else that happened could have been an email. And a tsunami of apologies to you, BB Rexa, but that's my truth. They're then asked if they've coupled up with someone who wouldn't have been their first choice, and Aiden once again decides to say whatever he feels like. Honestly, I think the reason he's so jealous and obsessed with Lorenzo is because he's annoyed that he doesn't get away with the same shit that he does because he isn't a suave, handsome, JFK Jr. looking motherfucker. I think that's the truth. Anyway, sorry. Naturally, both Tina and Aiden drink, and I love how quickly they've turned into that couple who hates each other's guts. She was considering picking Tommy or Samraj, and he says that out of everyone here that he'd pick Yaz. Now, if there's something I know about myself, it is that I will always root for an angry woman, so I loved watching Tina go at him for talking shit and saying that she was his priority, and then going back on his word and saying he wants Yaz. Get him. The next question is, never have I ever been tempted by someone I wasn't coupled up with. The producers aren't even trying to be subtle in their attempts to bait Jasmine and Lorenzo. So obviously Mika and Samraj are saying they're tempted by each other, and Lorenzo says that he wasn't initially focused on his couple with Jasmine, but he regrets that now, and seeing her with Caven made him realize that he does need to act on what's in front of him, and it did make him want to win her back. Ugh, I don't even care that he's bullshitting. I bought this hook, line, and sinker, and I can already predict that this man is going to pull a Clooney and not settle down until his 50s, but I'm just going to need to see the hot people kiss again. Although Lola definitely doesn't want to see it. She whispers to Fitzy about this being crossover with Yaz. Ugh, I hate whispers. It's so rude. This is reality television. If you're going to say something, say it, detective. Final question we see in this episode is if anyone regrets having kissed someone. And Tina goddamn drinks when we all know the only person she's kissed is Aiden. These two reminded me of that tense dinner party episode of The Office with Michael and Jan. I've truly only seen such resentment between couples that have had a contentious divorce and are still trying to work out a custody agreement. I'm trying not to get ahead of myself, but it would have been beautiful if they'd actually ended up trapped in a couple together, right until the finale. Alright, let's move on to Tuesday's episode, but before that, I need to say something. I have a little rant about these ITV budget cuts. The heart rate challenge is one of the most important milestones in the show. Probably second to only Casa Amor, so I need them to stop being so cheap. And don't portion it out over 2 episodes. They're killing the flow, and also they're making the girls wear some probably second-hand eBay lingerie. So much of my joy out of watching the heart rate contest is seeing all of the ridiculously stupid costumes. We can all think back to Mary with that awful wig dressed like the Little Mermaid. Those were happier times, and why did they all have to sit in separate chairs? This feels like a COVID safety measure that they forgot to get rid of. Let's not make it an even more awkward experience than it already is. Anyway, I'll get back to that later because it doesn't even start until the last 10 minutes of the episode. First, we have to deal with the fallout from Never Have I Ever, and Tina is still fuming from Aiden's lack of communication. At least she's done with him and can still walk away from this loser. Poor Caven doesn't have that privilege. He still has that guy strapped to his leg like an anchor. This is the issue with having siblings on this show. They automatically have to take up for each other, and of course you're going to prioritize them over everyone else. When they had the twins in season 5, they knew that they'd have to dump one of them immediately. It's too much. To be honest, I've said time and time again that I don't think there was ever going to be some kind of forever love for Jasmine and Caven, but Aiden will bring on their doomsday and demise way sooner than expected. I can't even handle watching scenes where it's just the Murphy brothers. It makes me realize how alike they look, and like Jasmine, it's given me the ick. In a conversation with Caven, Priya and Samraj, Jasmine is defending Tina, and I apologize to everyone who wants to treat Caven like their little precious baby boy who needs protection. But this guy's clearly 21, and he just will not let Jasmine get her point across without interrupting. I would have lost it, especially when he told her to chill. This is condescending, and I think there's still hope for Caven, but I just need Jasmine to get away from his family. From what I'm seeing them post on social media, that seems like an even bleaker future than having your in-laws be Frank and Marie from Everybody Loves Raymond. You're in danger, girl. Run as fast as you can away from them. He says that she's made him feel like a child in school, and I'm sorry, but he's acting like a child and needs to be with someone more on his level. This age gap is too big when one of the parties is 21. A lot of people on the show are very immature. Just look at Yaz having to play mummy again with Lorenzo. But God bless her, she's handling this moron with ease. He keeps umming and ahhing about how he's fine not exploring his regrets from ending things with Jasmine or Priya, and that he's happy with her. But this guy never communicated any of this to her, and she says that she's happy for him to explore and she'd do the same. He then later tells her she's lucky he's trapped in this villa because outside he would have already done a runner on her. Jesus, for one day I would love to be so hot that people consider it charming when I say such deranged things to them. He needs to implement some kind of filter. There just has to be some middle ground between him and Samraj. Aiden and Caven are up next, and honestly, Tina breaks the speed limit for the quickest way to leave a man she despises. She sits down with Aiden to end things, but he's being a pouty little baby back bitch and can't even be bothered to speak properly. Somehow, he's managed to make himself the victim here and feels like he's been misunderstood. Lord, give me strength. Meanwhile, Caven is co-signing his bollocks with the defense that Aiden has only fucked up 5 or 6 times, but apparently it's not on purpose and he's not a bad person. Ugh, he'll never get an ounce of sympathy from me. I loved when Tina yelled at Aiden to shut the fuck up while they were getting ready for bed. May she never give him peace, and honestly, I'm with Fitzy. I think she's hilarious. Speaking of men behaving badly, let's move over to Tommy and Simba. I love watching the boys fight because they normally spend all their time yes-anding each other's bullshit, and this year we've even got brothers in the mix. So seeing Tommy and Simba being petty little bitches with each other was incredibly entertaining. I have to confess that, in terms of entertainment value, Simba is one of my favourite villagers. This guy is just living life out loud. I never support him when it comes to how he treats women, but his behaviour is always spot on when it comes to handling the boys. So I had his back 100% in this argument. And no shit, Tommy isn't sorry for any of his actions. This dense man is inflexible and isn't going to have any growth during his short stay in the villa. Although Simba did lose me slightly when he said Tommy played a role in Mibs and Sam getting sent home. I was watching this and draping string across a corkboard, trying to connect the evidence that led him to that conclusion, but I'm lost. There's already enough shit to blame Tommy for that he's actually done. This didn't need to be brought up. Although I do agree that he was an important factor in Chidi and Hallie going home. Jesus, that took me a few seconds to pull their names out of my brain. Anyway, then we see Simba storming off and delivering my new life mantra. Not here to fucking self-improve guys 24/7. Amen. Put that on a mug, put that on a coaster, put it on a magnet, put it on a cap, I'll buy it. I genuinely think Simba has Tommy absolutely clocked. I went to Catholic school, so obviously I have a lot of trauma, but one thing that has always stuck with me is a sign they had on the wall that said, "Don't blow out someone else's candle to make yours shine brighter." Now, if given the opportunity, I would use a candle to burn that shithole school to the ground, but I do agree with the sentiment, and I agree with Simba that Tommy is constantly bringing other people down to make himself feel bigger. Oh my god, is Simba my favourite boy? I guess it is him, and maybe Lorenzo is also the lesser of all the evils that I'm being offered. I guess Finley, while boring, seems nice, but I've learned my lesson before. The jury is still out on him until I hear him speak a bit more. Although, sidebar, I think I may have identified something that's making Tommy an even bigger bellend than he already is. When he was making his morning coffee, he was just free pouring that coffee concentrate, and I bought that stuff because I'm a simp, and it is strong. Highly caffeinated. He needs to watch himself because if it's something that I'm measuring out, he needs to start doing that because I am already a mess and I had to cut myself down from 2 daily monsters. I have a high tolerance. Now over to Jasmine and Lorenzo, and I'm sorry, but I am a weak woman. I am merely a tickle me Elmo being manipulated by production into caring about this Jasmine and Lorenzo relationship. Even though I know they're an even bigger sinking ship than her and Caven. Like clockwork, Jasmine is pissed off at Caven, so naturally it's time to flirt with Lorenzo. Although I thought this conversation felt like it had a bit of finality to it. She says she liked how he spoke about her, and she's happy seeing his relationship with Yaz develop. Lorenzo admits that he didn't really know what he was doing, and suggests things might have been different if Jasmine had been the second girl he coupled up with. Bro, you're 28, and yeah, I'm not entirely convinced based on the absolute madness that comes out of his mouth whenever he talks to Yaz. But my god, do they look gorgeous together. Next, we have Jasmine and Caven sitting down for yet another conversation, and these two have such wildly different personalities that even though they resolve things fairly quickly by usually telling each other they look hot, I feel like these issues are just going to keep recurring because they're fundamentally incompatible. Caven gives what I would describe as a non-apology because he immediately follows it up by saying he'd probably interrupt her again, and Jasmine keeps repeating that this is who she is and she isn't going to change. Perfect, great. Love that for you both, but I'm not seeing a path forward here unless they just keep burying their heads in the sand. It's really tough when your common sense is at war with your horniness. Then we move over to the Priya, Samraj and Mika situation, and finally we get to see Priya putting that psychology degree to work because she can clearly see the writing on the wall. Samraj prefers Mika. I don't even know if Priya is that into him anymore, but this whole experience has exhausted her. She's tired of being stuck in love triangles and being treated like a side piece. I just need this woman to make it to Casa Amor so she can finally feel refreshed by the getaway and get to spend a few days flirting with some subpar men. Because the way she's being treated right now just feels cruel. And inhumane. We shouldn't be treating people with asses like hers in such a horrible way. She has given Samraj ample opportunities to shut things down with her properly, but he's incapable of doing it. He'd rather leave her hanging and let her get hurt than take a risk and potentially be rejected by Mika again. Alright, let's close things out with a heart rate challenge. Seeing these women's bodies, Jesus, it did put things into perspective for me because they looked insane and maybe I need to stop snacking on butter. Seriously, a baguette for me is just a vehicle to get more Kerrygold into my mouth. First up is Ellie, a woman that I can really relate to because I'm also appalling at doing my own makeup. But I'll give her the benefit of the doubt and maybe hers is just looking worse on camera. Regardless, she absolutely kills it and I just have to applaud her because she has a great set of knees. The way she was able to pop straight up from a squatting position, bravo, bellissima. Next we have Priya, and I feel like this was a really good outlet for all of her frustrations. I'm glad she had the chance to whack the shit out of all of those boys using her little whip. But I'm just so fucking done with Fitzy. Throughout everyone's performances, he's been a little bitch and making zero eye contact and not encouraging the girls at all. This is Love Island. Go home. Why are you acting like a clergyman who's been married for 30 years? He's too much for me. You know what you signed up for. Fair enough if this isn't your cup of tea, but maybe you shouldn't be here then. Then with Jasmine, I did gag a little when I saw her dance and lick on Aiden's neck. Blech. I'm never going to adjust to this sibling mess, but watching her drag up both Caven and Lorenzo makes me think back to Caven's threesome, which hopefully didn't involve his brother. And honestly, I think a freeway would be the solution to all of Jasmine's problems, and you just know that Lorenzo would be down. Why choose, girl? And then that little wave between her and Lorenzo. What am I watching here? I already felt like I was reliving Pride and Prejudice when he was gripping the air after their kiss in that blindfold challenge. Ugh, this is too much. I will say that otherwise there wasn't anything too extreme that happened. Mika is a better dancing robot than Megan. Lola is dressed like a bride and is walking in like one of the fembots from Austin Powers. She's very stiff and I feel for her because maybe her body was just stuck in a state of shock. She just kind of shimmies her ass in the general vicinity of the boys and only makes any physical contact with Fitzy. These two are a waste of the 2 minutes of airtime that they get given each episode. Then I thought we'd finished on a high note with Angie, who has knees of steel and an ass to die for. But I'd completely forgotten about the existence of Yaz and Tina. Ultimately, they do the same thing as everyone else with a little grind on each boy before taking the one they're coupled with down to the floor. Although Tina does get left to answer a deep philosophical question, and one that has been troubling me for many weeks now. Who is the least disgusting romantic prospect, Aiden or Tommy? She decides it's better to keep things close to the Geordie shore and tackles Tommy Toon to the floor. God help her. I feel like I need to do a ranking of every series of Love Island's male cast, because I'm always a hater, but this lot have got to be in at least the bottom 25%. I'll get back to you on that, but I am overjoyed that we finally got a vote. The episode closes with the option to pick your favourite boy and girl. Now, I was of course watching live because there's few things I care about less than football. I'm so out of touch that I only realised it was a World Cup when I saw it on a bag of Walker's crisps. So, of course, I got my vote in for Jasmine and Lorenzo. I don't love myself. Alright, let's get to Wednesday's episode for the rest of the Heart Rate Challenge, and I have another bone to pick, because the men got to have some goofy costumes, which I approve of, but I wish the same had been an option for the ladies. It just leads to girls' performances being very one-dimensional, and the only thing they're allowed to be is a sexual object. Not everyone is a dancer, so let them bring a character in and inject their own personalities and humour into it. I wish women had the opportunity to be funny or silly with it. My personal favourite from a past season is Scottish Mal being an awkward cat. Or Leah on the US version, she dresses up as a nurse and has all these like little funny puns and innuendos, and it mixes things up. We start with Caven coming out as a greased up builder, and it's never easy being first, but he did alright. Although I do think my enjoyment was clouded by my visceral reaction to seeing baby oil, because it just kept making me think about the Diddy freak-offs. Then we have Fitzy, and I'm confused about what his boundary is here because he's grinding on everyone, doing lots of licking and rubbing their hands down his body. But when it was the girl's turn, he was basically staging a silent protest. Was that just his attempt to manipulate the heart rate monitor results, which is a waste of time because I don't even think they're hooked up? I feel like everyone knows that the producers are just throwing darts at the wall and rigging the results to cause the most drama. Although I was in awe at the ease with which he lifted Lola into the air. I mean, she's tiny, so it's not like it was that hard, but being picked up by someone on or off national television is my worst nightmare. Next, we have Tommy and his tiny arse bringing some antisocial behaviour into the filler. Forget Obsession or Backrooms, this was the biggest horror film of 2026. This guy is just grotty, and he keeps doing too much to women who are clearly disgusted by him. I'm genuinely worried that Ellie may have slipped a disc when he executed a WWE level body slam on her. Then we have Spitgate, where he gobs that nasty looking jello shot right into Jasmine's mouth. Good lord, I needed to pull up my rosary and pray after that shit. I'm not here to kink shame, but there's a time and a place, Tommy. And all I could think of was that scene from Friends when Phoebe is meeting Mike's parents and tells them that one time a pimp spit in her mouth. Now, if there's anyone I can relate to here at Simba, the man was stiff as a board, although his little crown was adorable and he has an amazing body, but bless him, he was trying his best even though he seemed completely lost and was doing the exact same moves on each girl. But at least he kept it respectful and didn't spew on someone, and the girls were very supportive. It was nice. And I think I need to give an extra shout out to Ellie because throughout everyone's performances, she was basically the anti-Fitzy. I was living for her reactions. She was hooting, hollering, screaming, and that energy is needed to help make things less awkward for the performers. Someone else who was struggling was Sweet Finley. At times I was concerned that he was having a seizure with how violently he was jerking his body around. Sidebar, but I kept thinking how much I would have loved to have seen Opie's performance for this challenge. I'm so torn between it potentially being unbelievable or a total cringe fest like Curtis's. But no doubt it would have ended with him slipping over on some of Caven's leftover baby oil. Anyway, then we have Lorenzo walking out like the Terminator with a motorcycle helmet on and 10 pairs of large socks stuffed down his pants. He kills me, and I've been waiting desperately for this moment ever since we first saw his horrific dance-off moves against Fitzy. I couldn't tell if he was trying to be sexy, but this was pure comedy, and speaking of comedy, I almost pissed myself laughing seeing the getup they put Aiden in. Clearly, even the folks at eBay hate his guts. I almost felt bad for him when he walked out dressed like a little orphan chimney sweep boy. I do wonder if Billie Eilish has any knowledge of them getting the rights to use Bad Guy for this performance. With each of the women, it looked like he simply collapsed on them, like that guy who's too drunk at the club and needs someone to support his weight so he doesn't go arse over tits. Finally, we close with Samraj, who's been given a briefcase and one of the prop phones from Clueless. Now, I've never really paid attention to him walking before, but this guy must kill it on the runway. It's clear that he's a model, and I won't say he's a natural at dancing, but the performance seemed good simply because he was confident and ridiculously good looking. His body is unbelievable. Alright, so let's get into these fake results. Let's start with the boys. Simba's heart was raised the most by Angie. Tommy, Caven, Lorenzo, and Fitzy all had their heart rates raised the most by Jasmine. 4 for you, Glen Coco. Fitzy, man. His face when he got his results. All of those dramatics were for nothing. Then Aiden's heart rate was raised the most by Ellie, Samraj's by Mika, and Finley's by Tina. So none for Yaz, Priya, or Lola. For the girls, the biggest stud was Samraj, who raised Ellie, Priya, and Mika's heart rates. Then we had Fitzy for Lola, Simba for Angie, and Finley for Tina. Yeah. Look at the producers trying to create some new love triangle for the bombshells, which ultimately goes nowhere. Then Lorenzo raised the heart rates of Yaz and Jasmine. That means none for the Murphy brothers or Tommy. The Murphys were fucked by this episode. I think even the producers know that they'd really be stretching the realms of believability if they claimed Aiden raised anyone's heart rate. Ultimately, Angie and Simba were the couple who raised each other's heart rates the most. Great. Let them have a moment of happiness and peace before this guy goes mad in casa. The couple who raised each other's heart rates the least were Aiden and Tina, which would have been my guess because they're completely repulsed by each other. So the biggest fallout from this challenge was Tommy pulling a Harry Styles and spitting on Jasmine, and I've got her back here because Jasmine was not the instigator of this situation. That was all Tommy. He already had it locked and loaded in his mouth, and she just rolled with it. If Caven wants to be pissy with anyone, it should be Tommy. It's just not fair that she's being held accountable for his actions. And Caven did lick his way up Priya's body, which I would consider more intimate. Those two are a mess. I will say that I do respect that Jasmine is very much a take me or leave me person. People may not like or appreciate her personality, but I stand by her right not to soften who she is for baby Caven. He echoes back some of her favourite lines and suggests that maybe he's too young and immature and can't handle her calibre of woman. And he's really got her there. I just don't get where we go from here. He has tried to find some middle ground. And the one thing I need Jasmine to work on for this and any future relationship is listening to her partner's concerns and feelings without immediately getting defensive and dismissing them entirely. Although she does validate him when he's insecure about her wanting Lorenzo. That's something that I feel like she's always been pretty clear on, that she chooses Caven. I have to say that I don't think Caven could handle any of the girls in the villa, especially if he wants them to support his defense of his brother. I feel like he needs someone with a personality more like Hallie or one of the other women who seem quiet and we never really saw speak. They do end up resolving it, I guess, but it's just Groundhog Day with these two. And I'll say it again, but I think my favourite boy is now Simba. As long as he's holding a vendetta against Tommy and being one of the girls, I'm here for him. I loved him telling the girls that Tommy had told the boys that Jasmine asked him to spit in her mouth. I just really appreciate someone who isn't afraid to share their opinion, even when it goes against the status quo. He's not a boy follower. Okay, let's move on to the Priya, Samraj and Mika love triangle, and to no one's surprise, he's decided to go with Mika. Be free, Priya. I can't believe the way he's been getting with Priya in bed when he's known this whole time that he wanted Mika. I guess it became impossible to deny when Mika was the one he picked for his big finish in the heart rate challenge. I really hope that both Mika and Samraj feel like shit for saying that Priya was going to freak out and have some big reaction. Although I guess that was probably what they were hoping for, so that they'd look like the wounded party. But Priya is one of the only adults in the villa. She takes this on the chin, and I genuinely think she could be our next Stacey Dooley or Ross Kemp. You could send Priya to investigate the world's toughest prisons, and she would just get on with things. She'd just be bopping around. She's resilient. And Mika. Now, this is a reference from my fellow olds, but now that she has Samraj, her face constantly looks like the closing scene of The Graduate. I just know she's ready to do a runner and doesn't know how she's going to get out of this again. And it's happened again. When one triangle closes, another one opens. And I have been warming to Yaz. At first, I did find her a bit disingenuous, and I'm still slightly skeptical of her pyramid scheme ties. But she's been growing on me, and now I am starting to get worried that she is a game player, because that is more plausible than her actually being interested in Aiden again. It's clear to her that Lorenzo is getting bored and ready to cause some chaos because that man lacks a sensitivity chip and told her it straight to her face, so she needs to hurry up and get a backup plan in place. Why not lie and pretend that Aiden's Oliver Twist cosplay was a turn-on? Such bullshit. Next, we have another triangle with Lorenzo pulling Jasmine for a chat. I'm still not sure if this will go anywhere. I thought they'd written things off the previous night, but Fitzy was right when he called Lorenzo childish. This man-child just wants what he can't have, and Jasmine gets him. She is rightly skeptical and thinks he'll go back to Yaz as soon as he has her again. And I think that's a fair assessment, and he'd probably try to add Priya back into the mix too. At least from her side, she's telling him that he should continue things with Yaz. Alright, so let's go ahead to the end of this episode, which gives us the results from the vote. And if Brexit taught us anything, it's that the British public can't ever get it right. But I still needed this. It's important to get the lay of the land on where everyone ranks, and it always helps shake things up in the villa. Also, I'm a total hypocrite. I'm already regretting my vote for Lorenzo. I feel like I'm enabling shitty male behaviour because he's so hot. I wish I'd voted for Simba and enabled his awful behaviour instead. Anyway, the results are in, and the top boy and girl are Ellie and Lorenzo, which was exactly what I was expecting, although Aiden is not happy. He's ready to skin Lorenzo and wear him like last year's Versace. Then for the bottom three girls, we have Tina, Priya and Lola, and the bottom three boys are Aiden, Tommy and Simba. Now, I've seen a lot of online reactions where people are shocked and pissed off that Samraj and Mika managed to escape the bottom. But I'm not that bothered by it because I am kind of interested in what's going to happen with them in Casa. I just think it will be so hysterical if she decides to ditch him again. Although I am pissed off that Priya was in the bottom. What are we doing here? We can't not vote for the people who are actually putting in effort. Otherwise, the vote was fairly predictable, although I'm very curious how the dynamics will change now that Lola is in the bottom, and they should have had Fitzy down there with her. Now, if it was me choosing the bottom three, I'd have Lola, Tina, and Yaz for the ladies, then Tommy, Fitzy, and Vinley for the boys, because those are the people bringing the least entertainment value to the show. Although Tina still has potential, so maybe Angie would be a more boring option. Anyway, we end things with yet another cliffhanger, and the final decision about which boy and girl are getting dumped now rests in the hands of Ellie and Lorenzo. Alright, Thursday's episode continues with the dumping and also continues the trend of you only really needing to watch the first 10 and last 10 minutes of each episode. Everything is a cliffhanger, and the rest of this episode was basically filler and retreading the same conversations that we've seen before. Anyway, Ellie and Lorenzo are debating the very obvious decision on who to dump, and if Final Destination taught us anything, it's number 1, never drive behind a log truck, and number 2, you can't cheat death. Tommy managed to skip his turn at the last dumping, but it always eventually circles back to you. With Tommy, I was very relieved to see him go, especially after that heart rate challenge. Every girl in that villa is repulsed by him, and I didn't want those poor Casa girls to fall victim to his neck-grabbing kisses. So, see ya, Tommy, but I was actually sad to see our other Geordie Islander, Tina, go. I will never forgive her for calling Namibia thingy, but like Mibs, I feel like she had so much potential, and I think we're really missing out by losing her. It's always harder to pick girls to get rid of than guys on the show. I do think that Lola, Yaz, and Angie have more boring personalities and aren't exactly lighting our screens up, but I guess they all have connections and storyline potential. Now, while I couldn't care less that Tommy was gone, Lorenzo is borderline hysterical. He's basically one of those Dawson's Creek crime memes, and his devotion to this human shit stain is actually raising some red flags for me. But fine, whatever, Lorenzo. I don't want to be accused by Samraj of saying that men aren't allowed to have feelings, and I respect that he made the decision selflessly and didn't just save his bestie. Although this is another issue with having family together in the villa. There's no way that they could get rid of Aiden, because then you have to deal with the awkward situation of dealing with his brother every day. My one bright spot from the dumping aftermath was seeing Jasmine and Priya talk about her being in the bottom three. Forget the boys, I was happy to see that their friendship is still strong, and I agree that Priya is misunderstood. I'm glad that it was Ellie and Lorenzo making that final decision, because I worried that a lot of the other villagers would have got rid of my sensitive queen. And now she's having nightmares about everyone hating her. I really hope they have a good therapist on deck for these islanders. So the next day we get more sprinkles of this potential Yaz and Aiden reunion. She's crying and upset about Tommy leaving and wants a cuddle and comfort, but knows that she's not going to get that from Lorenzo. And God, I'm shocked at how upset everyone is about Tommy. There must be something incredible about this man that I just wasn't seeing. But anyway, Mika and Jasmine have a theory that Lorenzo is just not that into Yaz. So it's time for another Jasmine-Lorenzo chat for her to investigate. He doesn't think he'll fall in love in this villa. Well, duh. Even in the outside world, he's never had a girlfriend, and you can tell that he's used to getting everything he wants. He didn't know what he had with Jasmine until it was gone, and she is eating it up. I don't think she takes him seriously as a romantic prospect in the way that she does Cave-In, but she's clearly loving the attention. Meanwhile, there is a chat between Yaz and Cave-In, because they're feeling like the annoying side love interests who are merely obstacles in this great love story between Jasmine and Lorenzo. They are James Marsden in The Notebook, or basically every movie that he's been in. That poor hot man is always the second choice. Apart from in 27 Dresses, God, I love that film. I need to do a rewatch. Where is Katherine Heigl? I haven't seen her in ages. Anyway, sorry. I'm now seeing something else that Aiden has ruined. If he'd never entered this villa, then I can actually see things working between Yaz and Cave-In. She's clearly not his physical type, but they really seem to mesh well, and I guess misery loves company. But there's zero chance for them now because it would be messed up due to her situation with Aiden, and I'm already unsettled by the kiss that they shared at the sleepover. But maybe in another life, she could have been the woman that he'd cheat on in Casa Amor. Such a big what if. Now, I do understand their frustration because it would be easier if Jasmine and Lorenzo just flat out said they also want to explore things with each other. Right now, they're just in this murky territory and everything is very unclear. Okay, let's move on, and they are spoiling me with all of these games, and I was thrilled to see the return of the Twitter challenge in this new age. We know the power of this game. It was the final push given to childish Michael before he went rogue in Casa, and these producers are heavy-handed, so clearly their new target is Caven. Now, this time, the game is called Tea, Receipts and Truths. Very uninspired name, but it's a heatwave, so I'll let them off. Basically, they can choose from one of two boxes. Either the tea box, which features social posts, or the receipts box, which includes some out-of-context quotes. Then they basically have to fill in the gaps. It looks like some underpaid PA crafted this together in about 20 minutes, and they've just got some cheap laminated paper with the quote, and then have put some black tape covering the name that it relates to. This is budget. First up, we have a quote from Caven to Tina in the sleepover when he was being really cringe about the sex between them being mad and being worried about sharing a bed. When it gets revealed, Jasmine is smart. We're seeing a big gap between the intelligence levels of these women versus these men. She acts unbothered by this because she knows that Caven always gets upset with her in challenges, and she had a vision, like That's So Raven. She knows that there will definitely be a card about her and Lorenzo that will set him off. Although I will say, how dare you to Caven for acting like him saying this to Tina was some kind of charitable, philanthropic gesture. If we learned anything from her exit, this woman is almost too confident, but this guy currently has the world's most painful looking sty, so perhaps that is clouding his judgment. Next, my girl Priya just can't get a moment's peace. When a quote comes up about a girl having a big ego, Samraj and Simba discuss which of them said it because clearly there's a plethora of shit talking going on about her. I really admire her ability to take on critique and not get defensive. I bet she just killed it during performance reviews. I'm way too sensitive, but she is a real class act, and I really appreciated Lorenzo standing up for her. My prediction for the pre-Casa couples is Jasmine and Caven sticking together despite all this drama, Yaz and Aiden running it back, and then Priya paired with Lorenzo, which will give them both license to go absolutely mental in Casa. Then, as if the sty wasn't bad enough, production had stuffed these ballot boxes full of statements about Jasmine and Lorenzo to trigger all of Caven's insecurities, and I don't like this. Fair enough if Jasmine and Lorenzo want to flirt and try things again. I'd personally be very interested in watching that develop, but let them figure things out in their own time. Of course, they need a little bit of nudging to push things along, but this is overkill, and some things just need to happen naturally. Anyway, according to this game, Jasmine doesn't respect Caven, her and Lorenzo are having an affair, and they were moving mad when Caven and Yaz were away at the sleepover. Y'all need to calm down. I do think that Yaz is correct when she says that the only thing standing in their way is Caven, because if he wasn't there, then Lorenzo would definitely be going for it and wouldn't have a single care about her feelings. We do get a couple additional targets. Simba gets called the Lion King, and I knew they'd come for him because he has a lot of feelings. So many of the islanders this year are very passive and just take things on the chin. Boring. While it's very mature and respectable, we need less of that, so I fully support Simba being bothered and taking everything personally. The foundation of any great reality star is someone who has a strong personality and opinions that they're not afraid to share, and that's why he shouldn't have been in the bottom three. Then, to really stick the knife in after Lola being in the bottom three, they want to make sure everyone thinks that there's cracks in this Lola-Fitzy coupling, and we can definitely have an ethics debate on them using his sarcastic joke about making things exclusive too soon as one of the quotes. Context matters, but he doesn't help himself by trying to act like it's completely fabricated, especially when everyone was already backing him up and supporting that it was probably a misconstrued joke, and Lola honestly didn't look that bothered. Alright, let's move on to Friday, and the final episode I'll be covering for week 4, and it picks straight back up where we awkwardly left things off in the middle of the previous night's game. The next tease statement from socials is, "These two are giving scammers, I don't really buy it." Wow, they're really trying to shake things up between Lola and Fitzy before Casa, but I fear this is all a waste of breath. If the heart rate challenge and the dumping made anything clear, it's that these two are immovable objects. I would be shocked to see anything change. Next, I feel like they wanted to give Aiden some vindication, and they make it clear that Yaz lied about saying she had no feelings for Lorenzo. But of course, Lorenzo couldn't give two shits about this. And clearly the last two cards pulled in the game were complete flops, so let's get back to hammering Jasmine and Caven. First up, we get Jasmine's quote telling Caven that he needed to chill the fuck out, followed by her admitting that it's unfortunate things didn't work out with Lorenzo. Then the final knife in the gut is a tweet saying that Caven was right about Jasmine and Tommy all along. that everything revolves around her, and that she's now become boring. Ouch. If there was one tweet designed to target all of his deepest fears and insecurities, it was that one. It has completely validated all of the worries that he has about this relationship. So the game continues, and they're now dragging the parents into it. We get a quote from Yaz's mum, Vic, on After Sun saying that she needs someone who's more mature and has more conversation. Now, I have to confess, I have not been watching After Sun. I don't typically watch that, and I don't bother with the debrief either. I don't really care about the Islanders too much once they've left the villa. I was a big fan of Shakira, Tony, and Yasmin last year, but now I don't really care, and I just feel like all of their opinions are going to be influenced by whatever ITV are telling them to say, so I just don't really waste any time on it. Sorry. Anyway, Yaz's quote is obviously about Aiden, and honestly, she should probably listen to her mum. Then we get a Robin shout out with her saying that we need justice for Angie, which, fair. And finally, Simba, he throws another little tantrum because he just cannot handle any criticism. I can relate as someone who probably has quite thin skin. Every time someone says something negative about him, he acts like it's the greatest injustice that's ever happened. And once the game is finally over, it's time for the fallout. Caven has officially had enough of the whole Jasmine and Lorenzo situation, and it's obvious that it's making him insecure. At this stage, with all the other issues they've already had, Jasmine's reassurances are just background noise to him. He's checked out, and if anything, he's pushing her closer towards the reunion with Lorenzo that he's so worried about. He says he wants to take an emotional step back, which, I'll be honest, I still have absolutely no idea what that means. Meanwhile, Yaz and Lorenzo have a chat, and I actually think Yaz has a good read on the situation. It's obvious that the public love him and Jasmine together, but I think they're letting that influence what happens inside the villa a bit too much. This isn't The Sims. You don't have to force these storylines just because TikTok wants it. Then we have Simba, who is still incredibly bothered by everything that was said about him during the game. He keeps trying to rationalize his behavior to Angie, but this girl could not care less. In this scene, she's literally just trying to eat her snack. The man played straight in her face, so she knows exactly who he is, and she's still choosing to be with him. So just be happy, Simba. Aiden is busy tonight as well. First, he has a big brother sit down with Lorenzo to work out what his intentions are. But honestly, in my opinion, and I'm probably biased, I think Lorenzo and Jasmine have both been pretty upfront that their priorities are their current couples and that they're just friends. Although at this point, I'd probably call them best friends because from the edit, it looks like they're constantly chatting, and I get it. That can't be easy for Yaz and Kaven to watch. It's got to make you feel like Hallie and Chidi did during the sleepover. Nobody wants to feel like the placeholder. Then Aiden has another chat with Yaz, and honestly, this guy just needs to wait for Casa more so he can find his next prey. She doesn't even want to be having this conversation and is desperately trying to pull Kaven over just to avoid being alone with him. This guy needs to read the room. Alright, let's move ahead to the next morning with Kaven still trying to explain this emotional step back. He really likes Jasmine, but he doesn't think they're compatible. Fair enough, I agree. What I don't understand is this whole idea of taking an emotional step back or going on a break while you're literally on a dating reality show. You can't just pull an eat, pray, love and spend more time with your boys. Ellie is absolutely right when she says there's no time to take breaks in here. If that's genuinely how he feels, then he just needs to end things. Maybe they'll naturally gravitate back towards each other later, but inside the villa you have to be more direct because there's nowhere to hide and no way to ghost somebody. And the way that Kaven is describing taking a step back sounds exactly like ending things and exploring other options. He just won't fully own it, so everything ends up feeling blurry. Lorenzo and Jasmine then have another chat, and understandably, Yaz and Kaven hate watching this. They're feeling like complete mugs and are starting to think Lorenzo and Jasmine are simply a better match because they have different personalities and different morals compared to the Kent squad. Yeah, I didn't really love that comment because it came across as a little condescending. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it gave me the impression that they think they're somehow morally superior. And from what I've seen of the Murphy family and their morals, they involve some very questionable family boundaries. So honestly, Jasmine is probably better off as far away from that mess as possible. Alright, let's move ahead to the evening, and I don't appreciate how Aiden just can't take no for an answer. Yasmin even had to say to him that the door is closed, but he just won't accept that. I need her mom to come into the villa and fuck him up. Ugh, poor Yas is just having a shitty night completely. And I just don't get what Lorenzo is trying to say to her. He needs to give her some clarity on whether he's actively going to pursue Jasmine or not. He tells her that she's his focus, but I didn't understand what he was getting at when he was talking about Jasmine as if she's a new bombshell walking into the villa tomorrow. I need a Rosetta Stone to decode this man because he makes zero sense to me. I think I'm getting through this episode pretty quickly because it was kind of a snoozeroo. But let's close things off with an appropriately timed recoupling with the boys picking that ended up changing absolutely nothing. But I guess it fixes things so that Samraj and Mika are officially back together as a couple. The other pairings are Auntie and Simba, Finley and Ellie, and Lola and Fitzy. Ultimately, when it's Lorenzo's turn, he picks Yasmin, so I think we need to put a pin in all of the stuff with him and Jasmine. Then let's reassess after Casa. Kevin then recouples with Jasmine, leaving Aiden and Priya together as the spare pair. Now, for drama's sake, I was really hoping that Cav was going to pick Priya. I know it would have been bold, but I would have respected him standing on business and confirming this break. Although, if I was Jasmine, I would rather walk than have to share a bed with Aiden. Now, we close this episode with a sneak peek of Casa Amor and the new bombshells, but I'm trying to rein in my excitement because it will no doubt start in the last 5 minutes of Sunday's episode. Alright, that wraps up week 4. I'll be back next Monday to cover week 5 of Love Island UK. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you liked what you heard here, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, and consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps new people find it. You can also find me on Instagram at PopMonsterPod, and please DM me if you have any ideas for things you'd like me to cover in future episodes. Again, thank you guys so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.